Hello wonderful people, great to have you with me. Before I launch into my monologue for the day, let me tell you how to support the channel. All you have to do is go to patreon.com, find me by name and sign up. It costs about the price of a cup of coffee once a month. But in return for your support, you become a member of the family, you get exclusive access to a question and answer session that we film every week, early access to all my content. There's competitions from time to time. We've got one on the go at the moment. Anyway, stuff on the site to get your teeth into, and I'd love to see you there. The more the merrier. The link's in the notes down here, and it's on my website, neiloliver.com. Okay, let's see what the trouble is this week. What, if anything, must be the consequence or consequences of how transparent are the behaviours of the powers that ought not to be, that ought never to have been? I don't have to go so far as to accept, at face value, the contents of news stories freely available this week, with headlines like, Jeffrey Epstein's brother says the Bubba mentioned in Trump oral sex email is not Bill Clinton. But what the hell? It's out there. That headline, quoted above, part of coverage of a 2018 exchange between the Epstein siblings, released by the House Oversight Committee, lets us read how Mark asked, and maybe only joked, with brother Jeffrey, who had written about being with then Trump advisor Steve Bannon, quote, ask him if Putin has the photos of Trump blowing Bubba. What on earth can he mean? Bill's nickname was Bubba, you see, so arguably, assuming the Bubba in question is the former president is an easy mistake to make. I don't bother even to wonder why this is out there now, but come on. This is the stuff of today's discourse, which makes me ask myself, where in the blue blazes are we, and how in the name of God Almighty and Sonny Jesus did we get here? Even our own Guardian newspaper is mired in the stuff. Beneath the rather more staid headline, Jeffrey Epstein's emails reveal a disdain for morality among the elite, we read another of the allegedly dead child traffickers' missives, to wit, quote, have them ask my houseman about Donald almost walking through the door, leaving his nose print on the glass as young women were swimming in the pool. He was so focused, he walked straight into the door. The Guardian writer comments, if it hadn't happened in the backdrop to so much sexual exploitation and violence, the scene described by Jeffrey Epstein would sound like something out of a screwball comedy. In another exchange, Epstein asks, would you like to see photos of Donald and girls in bikinis in my kitchen? This stuff all over the news is salacious and essentially unsubstantiated by design. But again I say, come on! People contact me all the time now to say, in reference to everything around us all the time, it's all theatre. Can this be true? It's all theatre. And if it's true, who are the directors of the theatre? Who are the producers of the theatre? As Sherlock Holmes said, once you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. So I look out at the world, specifically all the unspeakable ugliness of Gaza, of Ukraine, of Sudan. I watch our own Chancellor plotting to take even more hard-earned cash from the suffering workers of this country of Great Britain. I read about rape after rape after rape of British women and girls by undocumented strangers invited here by the state. I am aware of all of that and more, and so I ask, is it really all just some hideous, murderous sequence of events choreographed to stun and frighten most of us into uncomprehending silence? They cut down the rainforest to build a highway for the limos of the private jet class, so we can listen to princes and other impostors tell us we can only save the rainforest if we stop eating meat, scrap our cars and turn off our heating. I said at the top, that the transparency of the reality of the behaviours of the self-proclaimed elite is complete now. Not just one person's elite, not just one president or prime minister or royal, but all of the so-called elites everywhere. So, the improbable being all that's left once the impossible is removed, are we finally getting to the point where the powers that ought not to be proudly declare who they are and what they are about? I've long since refused any other explanation for the sexualisation and sexual indoctrination of children, other than it being part of bludgeoning the rest of us into accepting the abuse of children that is the part and parcel of the pastimes of the rich, famous and powerful. Dismiss in its entirety the Pizzagate scandal, if you will. Go look up the sordid and stomach-turning allegations, if you will. But political power broker Tony Podesta, brother of Bill Clinton's campaign manager John Podesta, both of whose names ended up embroiled in said scandal, does and has owned and displayed in his home artworks by Serbian artist Biljana Đurđević, whose inspiration, and you can see examples of the work all over the internet, runs to the, shall we say, stuff your nan might be taken aback by. Make your own minds up and know that many and varied are the high power names trawled by the net. There's no doubt in my mind that there is a powerfully backed intention out there to normalise sex with children, to the extent that this is no side issue, but rather an appetite that is central in the wider circle of those that claim to lead the world. War for the sake of war, for the sake of the money to be made and the control to be asserted, is also central. Listen to the drums beating to the preferred rhythm of the politicians of much of Western Europe, demanding the perpetuation of war in Ukraine, and tell me the message is anything but that we should accept slaughter for profit as economic norm. For 2 years, there have been plans, literal blueprint-type plans, to replace the structures that comprised Gaza, home to 2 million people, with luxury seafront homes for the uber parasites. Look on at this and tell me it's about anything more than having accept such intentions and behaviours are normal and desirable. I'm almost forgetting the official narrative for what is supposed to have happened to Charlie Kirk. By now that we have seen and heard so much about that day, how can the official narrative be regarded by any sentient human being as, well, either A, pack of lies put together by idiots, or B, an utterly implausible fiction designed to do no more and no less than underline that as far as the powerful are concerned, we are to be treated with nothing but contempt. Not content with having us accept the President of France is married to the pervert that groomed him as a child, more and more people out there are openly discussing the idea that the First Lady of a first world country might have started life not as a female but as a male. Who among us really expected to live long enough to see the world this way? Theatre. That's the word more and more people use now when they contact me to explain what they see around them in the world. None of this is to downplay the out-and-out horror, the deaths and the suffering of millions, decade after decade. Real people died real deaths in the spectaculars we learned to call 7/7, 9/11 and a host of other butcher's yard events. The theatre I'm talking about refers only to the fictions we've been offered by the powerful to explain those events and to justify the exploits those powerful then embarked upon in our names. The madness being rubbed in our faces now, the official Charlie Kirk story, and most recently the seeming contents of tens of thousands of the God knows how many emails there are in relation to the so-called Epstein files. I say all of it must surely be evidence that those powerful live lives so unutterably debauched and immoral, as far, at least, as most of us proles are concerned, that the truth of their normal is finally impossible to hide. They hardly plan to bother with us anyway, given that we're the carbon that's destined to go to zero. But I ask again, what must be the consequences of us having seen so much, too much, of how the fraction of a percent prefers to live? Surely, knowing what we know, we cannot in all conscience live side by side with such. I have it on good authority that if you think BUBBAGATE is the worst of it, you ain't seen nothing yet.